Hi guys, welcome back to the Renaissance Builder. Today, we're going to work on aftermarket gauge locations in the center console of Project Monsterburb. So follow along for this exciting adventure. Okay, so now that the instrument cluster is done and we're very happy with that, now we're going to start on the slightly more fun project of providing a space for the gauges to go. So I'm going to hold the camera here and we're going to do one of these here, hold the camera while we work on this thing. So this is the gauge. Primarily, I got this one and a fuel pressure gauge, and we're going to put it in this space here. So just like the other one, this may be a two-hander job. Let me set this down quick. Ta-da! So that pulls out, pretty much just pulls straight out. Then you reach out behind and you unplug these cigarette lighters. Most kids these days don't even know what that is. But yeah, these used to be called cigarette lighters. Oh, look at that. There's actually a difference. That one's actually a cigarette lighter. It's all metal inside. And that one is a 12-volt plug because there's plastic in there. And if you plugged a cigarette lighter into that, it would melt and start a fire. Interesting. Anyhow, this piece is what we want. And we're going to cut this up and use it for our gauge, extra gauge cluster. Yep. So let's get started on that. All right. So at this stage in the game, I've got the pocket here removed that we're going to be using for this, make this here little insert for the gauges. Now here's the thing. So at this point in the game, the appropriate way to do this is to make a stencil and then to use that stencil to cut the sheet metal that that you want to insert in there. Now, I've never actually made a stencil before, so this is a new one for both of us. So what I've actually done is cut up some brown paper bag because it's a nice thick heavy paper and it's free. Free is for me. So there's a ridge in the plastic where I want this to recess into, and I'm hoping that I can trace essentially that ridge into this paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 50 cal antenna here, and I'm actually going to use it to press in a crease. No, don't rip the paper. Go figure. All right. I'm going to take this. I saw it shift a little bit. Hopefully that didn't completely ruin it. And I'm going to take this now, and I'm going to cut this. Set this piece to the side. Just cut this with my little 𝐥𝐤𝐤 knife and see how she fits. There we go. Let's see how she fits. Put this in here. All right, yeah, this ain't too bad. It's not too bad. It could use a bit of trimming off here and there. This would actually probably be a little bit better if I use scissors, but I think we can get this right. All right, you know what? I'm gonna go with this. So there it is. Stencil. That's the first time I ever made one. How about that? Now at this point, you can do one of two things. You can either so obviously we have to drill holes. So at this point you can either okay, so if you weren't sure where you were gonna put the holes and stuff, this is when you can doodle on the stencil, whatever patterns or shapes you want to see where everything fits. In this case, I know that I'm just gonna have 3 holes in here. Just pretty standard stuff. In fact, I might actually even just leave punch the one and leave it blank because I only have 2 gauges. So I guess it'll be room for an extra for the third. Right, so at this point, what you would do is you would take your stencil, and on the back side, of your plate. So this is the plate that I'm going to make, use to make that insert. And what you want to do is you want to put the stencil on the back side, so you can do all the drawing and scratching and shenanigans on the back side of your material, saving the face of it. Now I can take the stencil and I can outline it. Hand shears, and let's get to cutting. All right, let's see how she fits. You know what? It's a little rough, but it's a little rough as in too big. So I can start trimming a little bit up, getting it better. Now, I would also recommend, if you're at the same point I am, don't try to freehand your straight edges. So if you feel like an edge needs to be trimmed, use a straight edge and mark a line, because otherwise freehand you can really get out of control pretty fast. All right. Nice. Perfect. There you go. little insert piece that fits. So we went from making a stencil to, you know, putting the stencil in here. And granted, you could totally be more precise with your stencil if you wanted to be. Or you can do like I did and just always make sure your piece is bigger than it needs to be, and you can always trim down afterwards. So at this point, I'm going to put holes in the corners for fastening screws, and then I'm going to make the mark the holes out for the gauges. Also, this also means that in order to use this, I'm going to have to trim out this here pocket, so none of this exists. So I got to cut all this out. That way the gauges can go in there. But that's the point of the insert, is to cover it up. Okay, that's the next step. All right, so it took me damn near all night to get this thing, the center console piece out. I got it out right here, the piece that I'm looking to modify, but it turns out in the 2000 to 2005, I think 06, not sure of all the years, but there's definitely a few years in there where the center console of your Suburban and Tahoe is stout. I literally had to take out the entirety of the center console just to get this piece out, and this is the bridge. So you have the section with the radio, and then there's like a little intermediary section where there's a couple pockets and your 12-volt sockets, and then there's the cup holders and actual bottom of the center console. And this is the intermediary trim for that. And there's 6 rivets that you have to drill out. In place of those rivets, I'm going to use nuts and bolts with Loctite to make sure that stays appropriate and replaceable. I don't really expect to be getting back into the thing, but you know, whatever. We'll see what the future holds. But yeah, so if you guys are doing this, just keep in mind, I have to cut this thing now, and I'm going to be careful to cut. I'm going to be careful to cut the pocket in this piece so that I do not sacrifice the structural integrity of that center console, because whilst it is a giant pain in the arse to get that center console out because of how well it's built, I can also appreciate that it's that well built and want to preserve that. So, you know, whatever. Anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and cut this pocket, get back to you. Once the pocket's cut, well, then it's all back to reassembly. Now for a little bit of wiring. Now I'm kind of running out of time. I actually need to splice in the power for the fuel pressure gauge into the power that we have for the O2 sensor system, because they're not the same plugs. I can't just piggyback them, unfortunately, but we are going to splice them up. All right, and as you can see, I got a nice hole here, a nice pocket for my controls and stuff to go into. So that's nice, but we still have to, there's a bunch of excess wire. Now, honestly, all this wire needs to be shortened, like a lot. And I'll do that on another video, because that's some pretty in-depth wiring. That requires repinning and connector crimping and all that kind of fun stuff. Totally doable, but kind of involved. For now, we're just going to wrap it up, tie it, and go with that. All right. Ta-da! Nice. So, I've purposefully left this out because I am going to replace this 12-volt socket with a USB connector, because let's face it, the 12-volt socket's kind of useless. This one I left for a very specific reason, because I found something, and, well, now I have to go find it again. Phooey. I gotta go find it again. Well, anyhow, I left this one for nostalgia's sake, and because, I mean, every once in a while you can use the 12-volt socket for an air compressor or inflator or something. But this is getting the USB power. This cable is for the data recording of the wideband O2 system. So this I'm probably gonna wrap up somehow and just have it stashed in there. But there it is. Now my gauges are nicely kept. This pocket and everything looks, for the most part, okay. Aftermarket gauges are installed in the center console. I'm pretty tickled with it. I'm not 100% done. I want to replace the 12-volt socket with an actual USB hub that you can buy, like you can buy from Amazon, USB hubs that screw right in place to the USB, so it's not nearly as bulky looking. It's more built-in look. It's more OEM looking. I'm leaving the cigarette lighter. This thing still has the old school cigarette lighter, and I'm leaving that in there. One, for nostalgia's sake. Two, for sometimes you really do need a 12-volt socket. You've air compressors and inflators and shit that are designed to use that. And three, believe it or not, it's one of the handiest, what do you call it, prepping ideas. I can start a fire with the 12-volt cigarette lighter. So it's a built-in lighter. Hey, I'm good with that. So anyhow, I'm very happy with how this gauge cluster turned out. Yes, it was a lot of work to get here. And yes, there's a couple screws I didn't put in. I call them impossible screws. There was one trim piece that busted on its way out. I couldn't avoid it. But overall, I'm really happy with how this thing turned out. Yeah. So, if you guys enjoyed the location, hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you enjoyed the location and stuff, feel free to, follow, and you can do this yourself. It's very doable. Yeah. So, thank you very much for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. The next Monsterburb videos that are going to happen, there's going to be about the front end, a facelift, per se. There's a lot that I want to do with the front end, and we're going to start with the headlights. So you'll have to see how that works out in the next video. So make sure to hit that subscribe and bell icon, and then you can get notified when that one comes out. I really appreciate y'all's patronage, guys. I really do. It means a lot to me. Thank you. And till next time, have a good night.
Bye-bye.